I'll give you a little bit of setup on the lesson. It's obviously about idioms and their usage and teaching students how to grapple with idioms in language and written and spoken expression. I'd also like to touch on the fact that idioms are not understood cross-culturally. They're very cultural. And it's important if you have students, not just English language learners, but children from other parts of the country, you may need to go over the context of idioms because they're very difficult to understand. I geared this towards a 5th grade English language arts classroom, so there are some things that they need to be able to do. And if you have students who obviously are not at that level yet, you'll need to do differentiated instruction. So, okay, so I guess this is where I'll actually begin the lesson. And I'd like to talk to everyone about what an idiom is. We see them all the time. We may even use them without even realize that we're doing it. Is something, has anyone here ever said, it's a piece of cake? Yes, everyone has. Or it's as easy as pie. Does it make sense if we just literally said, easy as pie? Is pie easy? We don't, yeah, probably not. But it's an expression. It's an idiom. And so an idiom is a phrase that you would use or use it in your speech or in your writing. Why do people use them? They're interesting. I have a frog in my throat. Do I really have a frog in my throat? Of course not. But doesn't it make the language more interesting? Or when we're writing something, maybe we want a specific meaning or drama. So idioms can be a lot of fun. But they can also be minefields. Think about that. Oh, is that an idiom? A minefield. For those of us who know what a minefield is, it's a place that's dangerous where we're walking because there are dangerous things in the ground. So we use them all the time. Their meanings are figurative. Very seldom are they literal. And that's one thing we talked about before, the difference between literal and figurative speech. Most of the time, idioms are figurative. So maybe we can think about an example of a literal idiom later in the lesson. But for now, we'll talk about the figurative. I also talked to you a minute ago about idioms not being culturally relevant. We talked about that phrase before. We're 5th graders. We understand what culturally relevant is. Is it meaningful and understandable and usable by a culture? You know, idioms are tough. They might mean a pleasant thing or an unpleasant thing, or if they're misunderstood because we don't understand the context, we could really have trouble with it. Okay? So today, we're going to identify idioms in a text, and we'll be able to draw inferences from the text and discuss findings. You'll be able to discuss your findings with your classmates. Tell each other what you came up with for meaning, and if you expand upon it a little bit. We're going to look at this poem. It's called the Idioms Poem. Someone actually wrote a poem about idioms. Idioms poem. You can't cry over spilled milk, my mother always said. Life is not a piece of cake, she hammered in my head. That's not the way it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles. My mother saved her idioms for only idiotic troubles. And this is a poem by John Randall. So, knowing what we know about idioms so far, figurative language that may mean something else, where would we find them? in this text, in this poem.
Can't cry over spilled milk.
Can't cry over spilled milk. Why do you think that is an idiom?
They're not really crying over spilled milk.
That's good news. Yeah, you probably don't cry over spilled milk. How about my mother always said? No. Is that literal language?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My mother told me so. My mother always said. Taylor.
Life is not a piece of cake.
Life is not a piece of cake. Life is many things. Good job. What would be next?
She hammered in my head.
Could that be a literal sense either? A student actually talked to me about that today, literally. She hammered in my head. She was thinking about her thoughts. This is not, strictly speaking, an idiom, okay? But she said to me, what if it's actually my thoughts? So I guess the jury will be out. But strictly speaking, she hammered in my head is not an idiom.
Why not?
Because it can be taken so literally, okay? That's not the way it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Do we have any more in here? Yes.
That's the way the cookie crumbles.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. My mother's saying for idiots, for all my idiotic troubles. Okay? I think you found them. Okay? So we are also going to do a short activity. And let's see, I'll have to have you get into groups of 4. Let's see, groups of maybe 3, very quickly. And we're going to get into small groups.
Okay, there's 3. 1 group of 4.
Okay, that works. That works. And we're going to work on a list. There are some idioms and definitions, but they're all mixed up. So when we're looking at text, remember we have to think about what's in the text and draw inferences about the meaning. But when they're all by themselves, they might get a little tricky. An interesting thing about idioms, too, by the way, is their meaning can become lost over time, where they're no longer popular things to say for one reason or another. Sometimes it's just too old-fashioned, it doesn't have any meaning, and sometimes it could even be offensive. So each group will have one sheet to work on. Let's work together. And someone will need a pen and gather around, and you'll need to draw the line from the idiom to the definition. So does everyone, quick check, does everyone understand what an idiom is?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How do I know that? Can you tell me what you think an idiom is? Yes, miss.
A colloquial metaphor.
That's an excellent 5th grade answer. But it is absolutely correct. Good job. Wow. All right. So I would like you to spend 1 minute matching the idioms to the definitions. Keep these things in mind. They may or may not mean what you think. You can do pencil or pen, whatever you have.
Yeah.
We have about 30 more seconds. Okay, 5 seconds and we're gonna finish up. And we should be done. And if you're not done, that's okay. We'll just try our best and see what we come up with. Yes. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to do a couple of examples. Who found the definition for pull out all the stops? Looks like a lot of people did. Okay, what is it? Someone want to volunteer?
Make every effort to achieve.
Correct. I'm going to ask for another item. How about cooking with gas? Yes.
Performing with skill and speed.
Yes. Performing with skill and speed. That's one of those that has become kind of old-fashioned. It was popular many years ago, so idioms don't always stay popular. They go out of fashion. They're not used. Could that make it harder to understand it if you read it in a text? How would you figure it out? What would you do?
You have to think about the context.
You do. You have to think about the context. What do you mean by that?
Like the time period that the book was written in.
And also, if they're not actually cooking something, you know that it wasn't literal.
Exactly, that's excellent. It's figurative, so they're probably not actually cooking, right? Let's see, flotsam and jetsam. That's another oldie. Flotsam and jetsam. Don't know? That is, yes.
Work with objects.
It is, it's work with objects maybe getting in your way. Flotsam and jetsam. It's an old term from many years ago, another one that went out of fashion. Okay, so did we get most of them, do you think? Yeah. Do you think it was hard? Or was it easy? Okay. Great. So this is where I'm going to stop because you said a section of the lesson. Is that acceptable? Okay. Because it does go on farther for closure. Do you have any questions?
I was just gonna make a comment like within the lesson, but just because you said was it difficult, I was gonna say it's more difficult when you don't have any context clues to draw from.
Yes, it is very difficult when you have none of that. Very good. Good observation. Good observation. Any other questions? Okay, I'm done. Thank you.